Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's show. As you can see, I have my wonderful, wonderful guest with me, Demetrius from World Anvil. Demetrius, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm feeling very self-conscious because I don't know how you handle it, Guy, but how does one shave and cut their hair during quarantine time? Because my hair is going everywhere the last week or so.
There's a reason I'm cutting my head off at the top.
I should see like that maybe. Then.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's going crazy. It's going crazy. It's going crazy. Yes. Anyway, we've got a whole bunch of things going on. Guten Abend, says Frederick Schmidt. I've got Restream running. I don't see the chat. It is down there at the bottom, but it's not updating. I don't know what's going on. You know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, we've got a lot to go through tonight. We've got some amazing world stuff that's been created. I'm going to show them my screen briefly for now, Dimmy. Because that's the wrong screen. So that's the screen that they shouldn't be seeing.
So many times.
That's craziness.
Nothing to say here. Move along.
This is definitely not the right screen.
That's not the screen.
Where the hell did it go? Huh. Oh, I know why it's gone crazy. Okay, well, I'm going to go back to this screen.
That's a good
and we're going to just talk for a little bit there.
I can share it in my side if you want to.
Yeah, what I wanted to actually do was just to show the layout. So yes, if you can, let's do that.
Right. Give me the 1, 2, 3, and I will go.
Yeah, all right, go for it. 1, 2, 3.
Ta-da! How did
there
I
we go. Okay, fantastic. Don't know what happened there. Sorry about that, everybody.
I don't think I'm there anymore. The people can only see me like in their imagination. It's okay, I'm here. Don't freak out, Guy. Everything's gonna be fine.
Nothing changed since last time. Wait. I have to figure out where the hell you... Oh, I know why. Because No, not that one. Yes, there we go. All right, so we've got you there.
I'm here.
I'm just going to shrink you down a little bit and cut some of that off there.
Oh, I forgot to put my green screen up today. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
I have a cat, though. Look at that. There's a cat. Cat's always nice.
Okay, so the five lands. Lots of people jumping in there and saying hello. Ben Nicholson, Dean Alice, Grizzles, Sveinpruter, Sammy Critfiddle, Syriana, White Tiger. There we go.
So have you been waiting yesterday, like last Saturday when I was not here?
Last Saturday, all we did was, well, I say all, but it was a lovely thing. We made the iron pangolin called a Letamago. We made it as a species to be able to be used. It's a large background kind of creature. So I
like the name Letamago. It actually sounds very nice.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun time doing that. I see World Anvil's just forged us, so fantastic. They were talking about something very interesting, which is actually quite appropriate to what we're doing, which is creating wondrous worlds. So that was pretty cool. Squishy Squid, hello to you too, Squishy Squid. There you are. And Sammy Critfiddle Fiddle. It is an interesting one to say out aloud. Anyway, welcome all of you forgers. Tengwian says, Guy, please tell us about quantum physics. Janet said you can answer questions about anything. How much do you want to know about quantum physics? I had a couple very good books, actually. There's one book which I can't recommend enough called Where Does the Weirdness Go? And it talks
really good.
Yeah, it talks about the quantum problem of stuff works at the quantum level and then it doesn't work at the bigger level. And it's about finding that unifying theory where we talk about wonderful things like brain theory and string theory, which they're no longer appropriate. But I love the idea of quantum mechanics, but don't ask me to explain the mathematics behind it. That's a whole different story. Anyway, we're not talking quantum mechanics here. Well, not those kind of brains, Tillersy. It's more along the line of a membrane than anything else.
Oh, Tillers is here.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of people. It's really cool.
Tillers is in a crusade lately in Goldanville. I don't know if you know that, but Tillers created within the last 2 weeks a shit for for Coriolis, a seat for not so Coriolis. Sorry, Coriolis is not his order, but the Strange and Numenera. And now he's doing Savage Worlds, and he will also be doing Star Trek Adventure. So he actually is in a crusade right now, and like hello and thank you. That's all I have to say to right now.
So that's creating character sheets.
Yeah, so people can use them essentially. So he creates a sheet so people can take them and use create campaigns and play with all those systems. It's amazing.
There we go. That's fantastic. Vertixico says the standard model of quantum mechanics. Yeah. Brain says pseudonym. Absolutely correct spelling there. Brain. Brains are objects in advanced pure maths. Already I'm getting intimidated. Okay, let's see. Right, it's really small. That's something. Yeah, that is something. That's absolutely true. Right, so is that Slasio asks, now Slasio is from the Czech Republic. They ask, is your accent Romanian, Dimitris? It isn't Romanian, no.
No, it's not. It's Greek.
That's
Although
right.
I have spent 2 months in Romania at some point, and I absolutely love it. It's a beautiful country.
I would love to visit Romania. I really would love to visit.
I was very lucky to visit Romania in 1999 when, it was only 10 years after the curtain wall fell, which effectively means that what I was making in Greece was not a lot of money. It was actually a good amount of money for someone who was a developer, but it was not a lot of money. But I was able to spend 2 months in Romania living like a king. And I'm not even kidding. It was the most luxurious experience of my lifetime. I had a girlfriend who was Romanian about the time. And at some point we went out for a date and we rented a whole cinema. And it was not more than we would actually have paid in Greece for fast food.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore, but it was actually a very specific time in life. It was very interesting, yes.
There we go. Interesting. Yeah, there's lots of fun things in Romania. Okay, so let's get back onto track here. Going outside, yeah. I don't even get me started. You watch my blood pressure rise as I talk about people going outside. Anyway, right. So now we are looking at this world building of the 5 lands, and if you scroll down to me, can you go to the let's see. Oh, let me update you guys. I did something. Can you click on the Gakota lizard folk article?
Lizard folk.
Yeah. I also may have. Oh no, there we go. Okay, so what I did was I just did a drop-in of some of the 3D renders that I did, nice. And just did a bit of a write-up of the lizard folk, but I hadn't filled in any information. I hadn't filled in much information in terms of the species seat. So I used the species template to start filling in that in, and so tonight I thought we could either continue to flesh this out, or I then had an idea just before the stream started, as a matter of fact, that we have the opportunity to create our entry adventure.
That's a good start.
Now we spoke about it, for example. Yeah, well, we spoke about it last time you were here, and what I think it does is it gives us quite an interesting base in terms of adding articles that we need to flesh out at some point, but not necessarily need to have fleshed out completely. So what do you guys think? Do you think we should develop an adventure? We've got Dimitris here tonight, so he can show us how to do it. And I mean, I've got maps and I've got everything that we could need from that side. I have. Do we do adventures, or do we flesh out the lizard folk and the Gakota people a bit more? Because there was that adventure that already started to describe itself, yes, which was that trail line.
Yeah, we talked actually about the idea of going from the capital of Calumet,
yes,
up to here, which is actually the Hachaquin
the mines.
Yes. Because they were very important mines, because they mined the very important gemstone. They have the sunstone. So we're thinking of actually creating an adventure that the adventurers start in the capital, and they have to go all the way here because for some reason the trade route is disrupted. That was the idea. In fact, we have talked about the adventure.
Exactly right. If I look at the articles tree, we do have that. Well, we actually have another one in that articles tree as well, which could possibly be our campaign.
Okay.
So, we won't talk about campaigns tonight, but it's just something to have in the back of our memory if we do this. So let's see. Everyone's voting for campaign for adventure. I voted adventure. Okay, so we're going to do the adventure.
Okay.
Everyone says
Adventure
let's do
it is then. Good. So if we're doing the adventure, I will have to say two things that are very important when it comes to Gold Anvil. That if there is not written anywhere, and it's important to be said. Creating an adventure in Gold Anvil in your world is not, of course, your world, first of all. Okay, so the world is one entity. The adventure is just a story in your world, and it's not your campaign, because your campaign can, in fact, be played. You can actually have like 10 campaigns that play the same adventure, right? And the campaign notes that you have for each campaign will be different, because in the same adventure, I mean, I don't know if you have it, Guy, I'm pretty sure you do. You might meet a barmaid that will become very important for the campaign, but it's not part of the adventure. That makes sense.
Yes.
And you want your players still have access to that campaign's information, while the next people who will play the campaign, if you do not choose to make this NPC part of the adventure, they might never actually know them. So for this reason, I would say that the first thing I do always when I start to write adventures in Gold Anvil is to build a structure of how this is going to be organized, because it helps me, in fact, actually, organize my world. And that's where I would start. We can start with that if you want to.
No, let's do. We're here to learn, and this is great. Hang on, just give me a second, Demi. I need to just open up this screen share a little bit more, so we can see where you're going. I don't want to show that side, so that's fine. Okay, good. We can carry on. Okay, so
I will start by doing something very dangerous. First of all, I will start organizing everything, the new tool that is still under development, as you can see from the very section under heavy construction. But it will show you how things will be organized in the future. So essentially, that's why I wanted to do that.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, a new category called sessions. Adventures. Which that way essentially will be the host of all the adventure we'll be creating, okay? And then within the adventure section, I will be creating an adventure for this one. How would we call it? We'll call it, for example, different ideas.
In terms of this is the first adventure?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would suggest that for now, let's just call it 001.
00, okay. Adventure 001. Or 001 adventure.
Yeah.
Apparently, I called it 0001 adventure, so you actually have to do at least 999 of them, by the way.
Okay, that's challenge accepted.
So I just essentially dropped the folder in the thing adventures, and now I'm going to start actually creating the basic structures I find that this adventure requires. Okay, so we're going to have essentially.
Let me slow you down just a little bit, because that's what people are asking in chat. So, how did we get to here? This
right
page?
Now, unless you're a grandmaster, you don't.
Okay, all right. So this is for grandmaster. If you
no, it will be for everyone.
But
right now it's under testing, and that's why you're not here. It will be effectively replacing the articles and the categories. It will be called articles and template and categories. It will be a new layout that will be launching probably about a week, maybe a week and a half from now.
Okay. But under normal circumstances, you could just make this in the articles.
I was about to say, you can do exactly the same thing here. I mean, if I go to all articles here, in fact, in the world tree.
Right, because you can just add in another category as you go.
Yeah, it's just that's what we've done right now.
What you do.
It's just a much faster system, and it's a much easier system to manage as well. That's why I started here.
All right, so that's where we are. I hope that helps for everybody. We've got some cool suggestions for names already coming through. So there we are.
Okay, so we create the adventure. The basic things that a storyteller will need to run this adventure will be the things that he needs from themselves and the things that they need for their players. I mean, that's the basic categorization and significance, right? So I'm going to call a folder plot lines. That will be something that the storyteller will use in order to be able to write their own plots, and they're essentially segregated into acts or however we're going to segment the adventure as.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have another one that's going to be called, for example, I normally call, I don't know if this is the right thing, but I'm calling it essentially reference. It's a reference.
Okay.
So we can rename it afterwards, but essentially the idea is here that that's where the players who play the adventure will get information from. So, for example, that's where the articles for a specific location will be, or for a specific non-player character, or anything like that we actually want to add there. So this is a very basic, but the first thing you're going to do as a storyteller when you write an adventure is to create a plot article that will allow you to, in fact, start working through what the adventure is going to be about, right?
Lovely.
So click on the right side. I'm going to create a new plot. I'm going to call it... do you like to separate your adventures in acts, or how do you do it normally?
Well, interestingly enough, and this is something that everyone's going to find out next week, is that I'm launching a new way in which I try and help people approach adventure creation and adventure writing. So,
why don't we do it your way then?
No. I mean, this is about learning how to use that. So,
Goldhammer can be used with any method. So tell me what's your method, and I can find it out.
So, right. Well, we've got a suggestion for a name. So the name is the Sunstone Mine, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to introduce the players to the sunstones that warm the bodies of the lizard folk as being critical. So, in this case, I would call that the plot the Sunstone Mine. So Sunstone.
Oh yeah, sorry, Sunstone. Yeah. So Sunstone Mine. This is the main plot, right? This is the article that we'll be keeping to have the main plot into.
Okay. Yeah. Sunstone. Right? There we go. Perfect.
And the idea is that here in this article, we'll just start fleshing out what is the basis of the adventure. As you say in your book as well, Guy, it's going to be essentially somebody wants to do something by some specific time.
That's right. We'll use the sentence. Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
So we can start with that.
Absolutely. So there we go, folks. This is your first challenge. Somebody wants something badly by a specific time and is having trouble getting it using specific forces because something is stopping them.
We actually have your themes, guy, here. We can use this.
So we absolutely can. Let's get that sentence into play first. So once we've got that sentence, Dimmy, then yes, absolutely, we can go in and choose the 4 different types and that sort of thing. So let me type that message in to chat. So this is the sentence we're hoping to fill. Someone wants something badly by a specific time and is having difficulty getting it using specific forces because X is stopping them. Okay, so there I've typed it into to chat, and you can see Dimmy's put it up there as well. So this works not only for the campaign, but this also works for the adventure as well. So the campaign we'll worry about later on. So in this case, this helps us really, really, really hyper-focus. But, and this is a spoiler for next week, because a lot of times someone sees this sentence, and this is what I've realized over the last couple of years, quite literally, is that sometimes it's very intimidating to fill this thing in.
Yeah,
because you kind of go, well, where do I start? Where do I go? What do I do? So this is just between you, me, and the 73 people watching. Another way to look at it, to start with this, is to start with the final scene. What is a final scene? When you hear the word Sunstone Mine, what is the final scene of that adventure?
So the question is, what's the showdown, effectively?
Yes, what is the showdown of that? And you've got to tie it into Sunstone Mine somehow. So this is a very different way of looking at adventure creation, because it's very visual and it's very dramatic.
That's a very interesting idea.
So when you say, what's the showdown?
I'm guessing, Guy, that we discussed it, from the way we discussed the adventure, it seems like the adventurers go on a journey, and that probably ends through some difficulties to the mines, right? So
yes,
we can kind of say that the showdown will be in the mines.
Okay, absolutely. All right, yes. If you hear the title, The Sunstone Mine, your ending should probably be in the mine. How do we make that as dramatic and as visually and sensorily engaging and cool as possible? So what could be a specifically dramatic ending? And let's see, we got a lot of suggestions for people putting answers into the sentence, which is really cool. So let's have a look at those, and we'll come back to perhaps filling in the showdown. The Sunstones have been hoarded by a rival faction as a precursor to taking over resource control, and then the tribe itself. Okay, so possibly the miners are hoarding it, or it's going to the wrong person. That could be interesting. EDR Andrew has given us a whole name. Aberrantha wants control of the Sunstone mine by the next full moon and is having difficulty getting it using Gokota renegades because the Gokota god Karamanth is opposed to it. So fighting a god's will. The ghost of a mage is only allowed above ground for a finite time and seeks redemption before his time runs out. That's an interesting one. Okay, all right. Warp Enigma says the Authoritari wants its Sunstones back, but due to uprising faction can't get it on time. With a big problem for the advancement of Gokota society.
So we know, to help out the guys a bit, we know that effectively the mines are extremely important right now because war is about to break out.
Yes, that's right. And those stones are needed for keeping the population basically warm and going forward.
Yeah, because just a reminder for the people who don't remember, because our legion of Fokar is in fact cold-blooded, and the invaders are coming from the south. And this is where effectively it starts to get a bit colder right now. It becomes very hard for them to survive and defend the borders if they don't have the Sunstone. So they need as a nation the Sunstones in order to in fact have a good defense for the motherland, effectively. Motherland sounds like the communistic suddenly. But yeah, that's the idea. So the question is, who got the mine at this time of...
Yeah, so what's interesting is when you look at those sentence suggestions, all of those sentence suggestions were absolutely valid and were absolutely solid in terms of us seeing a bigger picture. But now, listen to these suggestions for the finale, for the end of a potential adventure.
Okay.
Placing a spear in the throat of the rebel leader. Okay, so that's a titanic battle. A lens in the side of the mountain opening its iris and light flooding through the tunnel, bouncing from sunstone to sunstone, all leading to the final chamber. That's very interesting. It's like, okay, let's build on that thought. Let's see. Heat permeating the air from all the light. Okay, so that's developing on that idea. The showdown is versus the rival or competitor. Yes, absolutely. Battle inside the mine itself with lots of crystals glowing around them in a huge open hall with a large drop where people can fall down to their death, says Warp Enigma. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Ben Nicholson, if you want it cool, there is someone trying to cool them down. So there is someone trying to actually freeze the Sunstones. That puts them at risk. Stopping the Sunstones, which I think is really cool. Okay. All right. So there is lots of stuff coming through. An angry GM wants revenge. His group wrecked the campaign. No, never. Okay. All right. So let's step back a bit because there's so many good ideas here. There's lots of great options here.
Just I think we have an article for the mines just yet. We do not. So.
Oh, lovely. Okay. So that's a good thing to just be able to add the article about the mines.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
I think the showdown, the Sunstones, when we look at what they are, right? The Sunstones are the essence of the entire Gokota Empire. The stones warm the lizard folk. If the stones aren't there, the empire collapses. We've established that. So we need to get the players to know that. Now, for those of you guys that were actually watching the World Anvil stream earlier, talking about Wondrous Worlds, and how do you get the players to step into these Wondrous Worlds, one of the big things is to show them what these worlds revolve around. So petrol is a good example for real modern day Earth today. Take petrol away and the entire country comes to a grinding halt. And what we're seeing now is a shadow of what would actually happen if there was no petrol, right? So it's about slowly introducing the concepts of these worlds to our players. And I think the Sunstones are very, very important in that space. So what do we know that the Sunstones do? They generate lots of heat, or they generate heat, and we said they can also hold a magical charge, which is what the magocracy part of this kingdom uses
He's
to
using them for, yeah.
right? So I think it's about those two things. And what I then think of when I think of a grand showdown is I think of our heroes fighting on a large crystal in the middle of this gigantic cavern with all of the other sunstones pointing inwards. But the sunstones are all building up in charge. And if the heroes don't defeat the evil creature that is charging them, the entire mine is going to explode and take out half of the continent with it. To show the power that these stones have, to show what they're capable of doing, but also to put a huge time pressure on the players to finish this and solve this before everything blows up. So I always am accused of being overly dramatic, but that's how I would do it. I would say that that's something that will get us very, very quick into the game, into that space, and into understanding exactly what's going on. So, yeah, how does that sound to you, Dimmy? Is that too?
Yeah, that sounds actually good. I think
Blow up a mountain as Adventure 1. I think that's a good start.
Or hopefully not blow up a mountain.
Yeah, well, yes.
Because I'm guessing that if you want to connect that to the rest of the campaign, you probably want to have some connection. Sally, I would think that if we want to make a campaign that's going to be about war, or the war that's about to break up, it's a very interesting way that we have decided with this adventure to start it, because it allows the players to become not directly involved with the war, but involved with what it will start the war. If you were an opposing nation and you know that the defense of the other nation is actually extremely reliant on the fact that they have these warming stones, I'm guessing that the first sabotage you're doing is actually cutting them their supply.
There we go.
From my perspective, actually, that's very important. It's going to be very important to understand that this is going to be part of the plot to start the war, and you are, in fact, introducing the players to the whole plot by putting them right there and now to the very beginning to something that might not feel like the war, but actually is all about it.
That's it. And you're doing exactly the new approach, which now that we have our end game, now that we have our big end sequence, there's lots of questions coming through on chat, by the way, which are very, 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 very smart questions to ask. But now that we have that end scene, exactly what you've been doing is we now work backwards and we say, okay, well, what are the ramifications? What are the steps that need to happen going back? And introducing the idea of this war is something that we need to do. So we need to do that in a step earlier. Right, so that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Now, what you're copying a whole bunch of stuff here while I'm
so
rambling.
I have created some. No, it's fine. I'm actually created some articles. I created the warming stone. I put it already. So I created sunstone, which is a material, and I created the Hachaquin mines, which are the mines that we have there.
Okay.
And I'm just adding them on the sidebar of the article as references. So if I can show you actually how this looks like, it is our plot still. So we have to write the plot to the left side, but on the right-hand side, essentially, I'm just creating a list of articles. I haven't formatted just yet. I will format it better now. Essentially,
sure, lovely. Okay. And those links, you're just copying the link and. Okay.
Yeah, literally, just essentially, it will be a way for the storyteller, because that's the most important thing when you're playing a game. The very first thing you need to have on your adventure, on your plot, is a quick way to actually gather the information that you need. Right? I mean, that's what you need at this point. So what I'm doing is just making sure that they have access to the information they will need. We'll make them better later, but for the time being, just putting them there.
Perfect. Okay, so let's see what chat is saying. Right. Laura Bones says, if Janet and Kaora are ever in this game, they will blow up the mountain.
Probably, yeah. Knowing both of them.
Right. Sammy Critphysical says, so the Sunstone powering some sort of arcane device that can be overclocked and caused a meltdown kind of thingy. I think that I wouldn't necessarily say it's a device because we haven't necessarily established that. What I'm going to do is I would look at it and say the sunstones, we haven't defined them yet necessarily, and I think that's actually a good thing in the case of this adventure because now we can mold them as we need them to operate. So if they were chunks of broken crystal, I'm just spitballing here, so Demetrius, jump in if at any point, right?
I'm already opened the article here, so I can actually write the information about
okay so if they were sort of just chunks of rock, chunks of crystal, embedded in limestone type of caves and things, the lizard folk go in, they mine them out. I would like to have some kind of creature that the lizard folk use to mine them out, like some sort of Tyrannosaurus Rex mole-like creature. You know, something that is completely placid under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
But that burrows, right?
Okay, so essentially you're thinking of using them as tools.
Yes.
To create the tunnels.
Correct. So something along those lines. But they burrow through these limestone quarries to find these chunks of rock. Then the rock gets taken to the city above it, where it gets carved and refined, and then imbued with the warmth that they generate, because they hold magical charge. So then, if the cavern is a geode, now in geography, or in geology I should say, you get these balls, these spherical, they're not usually, well, most of the time they're sort of spherical, but they basically this gap in the rock, and inside crystals form. And so you'll be digging through normal rock and suddenly you find this big hard ball, you crack it open and there's beautiful gemstones on the inside. So if there was a geode that had been discovered, okay, and there are hundreds of these crystals inside of it, which makes it incredibly powerful, incredibly useful, but that's when this rebel group, however, we can go back to the suggestions. It could be an undead ghost, it could be a rebel army, it could be saboteurs, whatever, get in there and release magic into those stones. Those stones are just going to absorb that magic and then amplify it, right? And then that's going to blow out the entire cliffside. So the PCs would then have to get in there and they'd have to stop that. Does that kind of make...
Stop it or discharge them in a way, right? Because...
yes, lovely. Yes, absolutely. So
it's like creating a ticking bomb, essentially, and they have to find way. But on the other hand, you have to still charge them. So whoever these people are, they must have a way to, in fact, imbue them with magic, right?
Yes.
So we have established already there must be a wizard there, or wizards, in fact, that have enough power to do that.
There we go.
I don't know if it would be the best. I mean, I will start with what you're asking, in fact, as well, which was, what is the end goal here? Because if you want to blow up the mine, do they want to blow up the mine? Do they want to actually completely destroy the supply?
I think they want to completely destroy the supply, because that would shut down the entire Majocracy. And remember, we have that castle that's built on the cliffs above it.
Okay,
if you blow out that whole cliff face, you destroy the mines and you collapse the castle.
So how do you destroy them? I mean, you fill them up with energy, and then do they become, for example, when they are filled up with energy, explosive? Or
I would imagine that they would just continue to absorb energy until they explode.
But that will require massive amounts of energy. Like, you need a wizard or wizards to, in fact, like, completely continue charging them for quite some time until they cannot hold anymore. But that should be essentially the whole of the mine, or a good portion of the mine.
Unless, let's go back to one of the suggestions. What if the sun charged them with warmth? Right? Because remember, we said that these sunstones provide warmth. So in order to not have a mage every now and again running around casting warmth on these stones, if they just held up to the light like a solar panel, they
That is a
absorb
very
heat.
good suggestion. But if these stones are used as a magical conduit that stores magical energy and you can charge them with the sun, this empire, unless somebody can actually hide the sun, at this point has unlimited power.
So, well, what I would say is that, because I agree with you, I completely agree with you. So I'm just looking at these amazing suggestions that are coming through. So the stone will only hold a certain amount of power. But because this is a geode, what will happen is that if you could get sunlight into that geode, it will refract its own sunlight around inside that geode, amplifying the amount of sun that each crystal is getting and almost building up a feedback loop like using a magnifying lens. So then the geode will literally get to a point where it explodes. Normally, a sunstone crystal will absorb its power and then not necessarily explode. It would just sort of stop. But here it's being force-fed. I don't know, just some ideas.
What if the treatment that they take is what makes them stop, in fact, from overcharging, but in their raw form are, in fact, light sensitive, and they will explode if they are, in fact, like at the moment actually they overcharge. Because imagine this process. So if they're growing in a cave, and probably at some point they did not grow in a cave, they crawled out of the cave, but they're no longer because they're all exploded. So the only supply you can have is, in fact, in darkness, which automatically means that the people who extract those stones, whatever way they are doing that, have to make sure that from the point of taking the stones out, the point they're going to the refinement plant or the whatever this might be, they have to keep them in darkness. Like a film, like an old film, effectively. So effectively that means that the raw material is light sensitive and it will actually warm up and at some point explode and overcharge effectively if it's left like that. While the material, the actual warming stone, like the item, the magical item, is regulated. So the people who want to, in fact, destroy the mine and destroy the whole thing, they could have, in fact, created some sort of a lens or a mirror system that funnels sun from outside in the mine, knowingly that essentially within 72 hours or like 5 days, 10 days of charge, things will start exploding. And there will be essentially a chain reaction that will go through the mine, effectively exploding, destroying everything.
Okay, I like that idea. Because it limits the power of the sunstone without making it useless, and it gives us some interesting complications to go with. So I really like that idea. Lots of suggestions coming through. I'm trying to almost summarize them in my head as reading them. Now we've got some good ideas for a little bit earlier on as well. So yes, let's canonize that before we lose that. So I would say in the original, yeah, absolutely, Demetrius, yes. So in the original form, the sunstone from the sunstone, if it absorbs light, it will explode. Okay, but when taken in complete darkness to a processing refinery area, will then be reduced to a sunstone, which then charges
a warming stone.
A warming stone. There we go. Yeah. All right, Tenwigan, I don't know why I say Tenwigan. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for live session with the GM. Okay, whilst you're doing that, Ben Nicholson was suggesting an open cast mine. Absolutely. I think this one...
No, if there's open cast mine, there's a big problem because...
Yeah. No, that was earlier on in the conversation.
Okay.
I was just going to say what I like about open cast is that doing it this way, they have to be kept in the dark. It means that, because this is something we have to also consider, and someone did mention it, what if the players keep the stones for their own faction? But
But the
this
players
way.
if the players are from this country, I mean, that's the first question, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but even if they are, they might keep this stuff for themselves if it's really, really, really valuable. But in
I
its
mean,
raw state, it's quite funny. They walk out into the sunlight with it and explodes.
but I mean, from what we know, we can actually just say that the players are the saboteurs. So this is their mission. But you know what? I mean, that's a question.
Well, by this stage, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Okay, so yes. So now Josu Ramirez is asking a very, very valid question. And it's the next question that we actually have to answer in terms of designing this. Is we've got our big dramatic end scene, right? Where light is being funneled into this geode, which is then going to explode. What countermeasures does the Magocracy normally have to prevent something like this from happening?
Well, now, first of all, we know there is a city that was built specifically here,
yes,
to protect the mine, because they know very well how bad this can go, right? So there is definitely a Chimali, that's the other one.
Yes.
So there is definitely a fortress for protecting the mine, but yeah, it's absolutely right. I mean, there will be, in fact, countermeasures. I mean, if I was creating a place like that and I had to, in fact, mine it, I would make sure that the entrance, for example, is not like an open entrance that people can actually just barge in, right? You would have probably like an airlock system that will have two massive doors that can open necessarily only from one side, and this massive door. I mean, there will be a process there, but that will be for the players to discover how the insurgents managed to go through it, right?
Correct. So we do need to know what sort of system would be in process. Now, there's an interesting suggestion that's come through from Ame Musashi, which says, what if this happened during an eclipse? Which turns our entire plan of blowing up the mountain using sunlight on its head, right? This is talking about stealing the sunstones during an eclipse rather than not. So
you're gonna have a problem because eclipses don't last so long.
Yeah.
Like you'll end up with explosive material, and after half an hour the eclipse is gone, and you actually have like a ton of dynamite essentially.
Yes, exactly. So I do like the idea though of putting a time frame on it. So one of the options that we have, now that we've got our end sequence, let's work our way backwards and figure out how the players need to get involved in this process. So this is the next step. We've got our end sequence. The players are inside this giant geode fighting off the big bad, whatever the big bad might be, whilst beams of light are streaming down the tunnel and entering into this geode, powering it up so it's getting warmer and harder and okay. The players can't destroy the crystals because if they use magic, the crystals just get stronger and charge faster. They could hit them, but it's a giant geode, so it's full of stuff. Now, there's lots of suggestions about casting darkness inside this geode. That would work, absolutely.
That's a good prevention tactic for the players, I'm guessing.
Correct, and they have to be there first in order to be able to do that, and darkness is only a 20-foot square. So this geode, thanks to the suggestion of the players casting darkness, is now 180 foot in diameter. So the darkness spell will work over an area, or maybe the one tunnel entrance, but not multiple tunnel entrances. Because
that's the other thing that actually an empire like that would have done. There would have been only one entrance.
Sure. Okay.
I feel like if I was somebody who's actually doing something like that, security be damned, there is only one entrance, because you know what, people might die, but at least I can still have the stones at the end of the day.
There we go. Now, De Krishka, I think, has got it on the head here. The saboteurs have used a mine of their own to get there. Okay,
so this is a secondary entrance that actually there was mined out, like a how do you call that? Chantage in a way.
Absolutely. Now, there is a wonderful, wonderful story written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle called The Red-Headed League. And that uses this exact idea. And Sherlock Holmes gets wise to the idea that a tunnel is being dug because a man with red hair is forced to sit in an office for exactly 2 weeks, copying out the English encyclopedia and getting paid a small fee for that. The man got very worried. Why am I being paid to copy out the English encyclopedia and being paid a small fee for that? And what Sherlock Holmes realized, of course, is, well, he needed to be out of his shop that he owned
because
for 4 hours every day, because the shop was directly opposite the bank's vault and the thieves were digging underneath the road to get to the bank's vault. So they needed the owner, a red-headed man, to get out of the store, and so gave him this phony job. Now, I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and if you needed spoilers on that, it was only written 130 years ago. But it's a great idea, because what it does is it starts to give us starting points. So imagine, just hypothetically, the players are now fighting a bunch of monsters in the jungle, okay? And the next minute, the ground underneath them collapses and they fall into a tunnel, right? Mm-hmm. Where does the tunnel go? It leads into this giant geode full of crystals that no one else knows about except for now the players. Who dug the tunnel? It starts to ask questions. What it does also is it firmly, excuse the pun, embeds the player characters into this entire story, because they're the ones who are discovering this alternative tunnel to begin with, and they see where it goes, but they don't necessarily put two and two together. Possibly. So, you know, I mean, there are various ways of looking at it. Anyway, let's work back from the showdown. So the showdown is the players, they're in this geode, they're fighting off this faction that is trying to cause this geode to explode, to blow out the mountain. What do we need to get them before that? To get them into the geode, how do we get them in there? How do we get them into that tunnel, into that mine? We need to get them to the mine, don't we?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just writing down the showdown.
Making notes.
So I'm sitting there. The players fighting the saboteurs that are trying to explode, not explore. Explode the mine by overcharging the sunstones. Yeah, the sunstone crystals.
That's it. Yes.
Using a mirror or something.
Correct. Correct.
Mirror. How do you call it? Not mirror. How do you call it when you actually have like deflecting dish?
Or reflecting glass, or
mirror.
Yeah.
Using.
So there's another great way of getting them into the story, by the way, because by writing out using the sort of reflective stuff, imagine you're sitting in a tavern and someone comes up and says, "I'd like to pay you a small fee to find out who stole my mum's mirror."
I think it's a bit bigger than his mum's mirror, but yeah.
Well, this is the thing. The PCs then go to the house. They discover that the mirror has been stolen. They discover also that it happens to be a 3-foot by 3-foot mirror. So it's like, it's a big mirror. But then, as they're trekking along, they discover that other mirrors have been stolen. You know, so I'm just throwing out ideas as to how we get into the adventure.
Yeah.
Right. That's not necessarily the way to go. Definitely not. So there's lots of routes. So, but yes, when suddenly the PCs go, you know what? A lot of mirrors have been stolen, folks. What do you need mirrors for? Someone might say an Archimedes mirror. I think it was called the Archimedes mirror. That was that giant weapon that he designed.
Oh my God, yes.
That burnt ships in the harbour using reflected light. So, you know, I mean, it's
the same system they're using, by the way, to turn on the Olympic fire.
Why not?
Every 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, I think that could be an Archimedes mirror. So, so Warp Enigma has just said a nice sort of foreshadowing mission that, you know, the mirror's being stolen. It's foreshadowing, but we came up with it from figuring out the end first, and this is something that I thought works quite well. So the mirrors could be made out of obsidian, says Musashi. So obsidian is reflective to a degree. If I think
it's a small degree.
It's not. But I mean, the idea is it could be mirrors, right? So it could be mirrors. It could be discovering the tunnels that the rebels are digging to get there.
Look, Guy, I will go a little bit backwards because we're
Yes.
becoming we're doing a lot of things which are very interesting. But the question is, what kind of a level adventure is this? Because if this is the introduction to your world, you do not want to make it that complicated, do you? I mean,
Exactly right. No, exactly right. Exactly right. You right on point there. So we get them to the mine. Well, you want Act 4 there.
yeah,
All right.
essentially Act
So
4 will be the showdown. So you
sure.
have an
So
Act 1, which is going to be the introduction kind of thing, like the first thing going to
yeah.
happen.
Step 3 is they need to get to the mine, right?
Okay, so that would be the
These are just
travel to the
notes
mine.
for ourselves. These are just notes for ourselves, right? So traveling to the mine. Step 2, Act 2, in my way of thinking anyway, is what they thought was the plot is not the actual plot. So it's the twist. So what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, Act 1 is about the mirrors being stolen, right? When they discover that the mirrors are not being stolen that they're being stolen and then sold by the thieves who are stealing these mirrors.
What if they were to steal actually something more significant, like a large amount of silver? So really, they are hired to find out who stole the silver.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, yeah, whether it's mirrors or
But
something
necessarily,
reflective,
I'm thinking
right?
actually the idea of essentially somebody would have hired adventurers to track down who stole like 150 kilos of silver,
Right.
because that doesn't sound like it doesn't sound suspicious. Like somebody stole silver, we have to find them, and that makes
Yes.
perfect sense, kind of
Yes.
thing.
Absolutely. So you're quite correct. So they have to find the let's say stolen
Silver
silver. It's
shipment.
absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Okay.
So
Then
they're trying to find the stolen silver shipment.
correct. They do some, and we'll just I keep this very simple, but some investigation. They find the silver, right? Because this is not the true quest. Yeah. So Act 2
But do they
is
find the silver?
sorry.
Will they find the silver?
Well,
Because
what happens is when they get to the point where they find the silver and they're like, the silver is in here, ha ha! They open the door, and that then reveals, and we'll figure out how this works. But what that reveals is actually, yes, you found the silver, or no, you didn't. The silver's all been melted down into a mirror already. Why the hell would you need to make a giant mirror? And that actually leads them to the mine and to the actual geode. So
they might actually discover the plot at this
well,
point.
that's
Like they
it, exactly. So they discover that what they thought was the plot, find the silver, is actually just the lead into the main
Yeah.
adventure. Yeah,
So it might be essentially they find some sort of like Da Vinci-like kind of like
exactly.
device,
Exactly.
and they will actually, oh, that's going to be used for that. Why would you use that? And they can actually like continue a little bit the investigation on the scene to actually find out, oh, that actually is the mines.
Correct.
They are trying to blow up the mines.
Correct. So someone, you're absolutely right. Someone was saying they're using silver as the middle mirror. Wait, hang on a moment. There was someone who suggested something. Oh yes, there needs to be a link, which is what we're getting to in Act 2. There will be a link with them getting the information together. So it will be the silver is used to make reflective mirrors. A giant mirror is being constructed, and possibly even an old map of the mines is has was stolen from a museum or something along those lines, so that they know where to dig from another side. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that will then get them to go to the mine, and that gets them into the showdown.
Mm-hmm.
So there we have it. Now, if we then go back and we look at someone wants something and is having difficulty getting it, now that's going to help us fill in that information. So the let's call them rebels. I think we're happy with calling them rebels for now. So if we fill in our sentence, the rebels want to blow up the mine. I forget its name.
Which we can find because you have that very easy.
How did you do that? How did you bring that up?
I just did at. So I remember that the name of the title, the article had the name mine. So I did at and mine.
Yeah.
And then through here, Hatchqueen, mines.
So the title had the word mine in it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so yes, so they're trying to blow up the Hatchakyun mine. All right, before their secret tunnel is discovered. Okay.
Is that the end? I mean, do we want to do? I mean, we can see.
Well, we can refine that absolutely.
We have a time limit already, right? Because it will take some time for them to charge all the crystals. So that might be essentially the limiting factor, kind of like so we can say they try to blow up the mine, but they need to wait for 172 or 10 days, for example, for the mine to be overcharged, whatever this might be. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. I think though that what we need to do actually, and there's so many good suggestions coming through from chat. In Act 3, traveling to the mine. Okay. Yeah. What if, as a new entry, those mine doors have been sealed from the inside?
Yeah.
Okay, so the rebels break into that geode, they kill all the workers, they seal those wonderful doors of yours. And the question would be, why would they seal themselves inside? They're all going to starve to death. There's no food or water down there. Right? It's a wonderful leading question because the players go, well, they've got another tunnel. Right? So they seal themselves in this.
Oh, so interesting. So effectively, everybody thinks that actually they're being sealed in while they're using the other tunnel to overcharge the mines.
Exactly.
That's an excellent idea.
Because they have a second tunnel.
So they're able to blow up the Hatchaqueen mines before their secret secondary
tunnel is discovered. Yeah.
Tunnel is discovered.
Yes. And they can't teleport near the into the geode because teleportation requires line of sight, or you to be familiar with that location, and it could also be several miles down or into the rock face. I mean, we can work around. We can definitely work around that.
We can also make it. No, that would be very harsh for the players, but we could have made it actually a dead magic area.
Well, because the stones absorb
because of the stones. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Maybe the stones in the raw format actually just not only suck up light, but they also suck up like magical energy.
Magical energy. We can certainly do that. That's awesome. I do.
Or lens it. So if they become a lens for this energy, they might actually just simply become wild magic. So, like you cast fire, but actually you cast either fire P or fire meteor kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Or it turns into ice or electricity or
exactly.
Or something. Okay. Well, let's. All right. So before the secret secondary tunnel is discovered, all right, but they're having difficulty getting it because the players are hot on their trail. That's the bottom line. So there was an excellent suggestion that the players discover, and this is brilliant because it feeds back into all of the other techniques and things that we've spoken about before. In Act 2, the players discover a workshop.
Oh, I was thinking about that as well. That's very good.
Where the lens mirror, reflecting mirror has been tested.
That's a good idea.
And actually, we now talk about pacing when we look at this. In that workshop, one of those reflecting mirrors should still be operational and should be used against the players' characters.
Oh, interesting.
Well, nothing makes the players want to go and find out more about your plot than when you attack them with it. So if you've got the small version and the scientists or the wizards who built it are still manning it, they can use it to attack the PCs, to give the PCs some sense of its power and that sort of thing. So I think that could be quite fun. What was all of that that ASCII that popped up?
It wasn't ASCII. It was actually I'm using on a developer's regular browser, so you saw some of the comments.
There we go. Okay, so
Nothing to do with what that will, yeah.
we saw behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, lovely. So,
So what I did here actually is that I did an extra act, because the way
Yes.
that the thing is described here is actually we
there's
have
5.
the silver heist, but actually they have actually find out who stole the silver.
Yes.
Then you get the clues, you
Yes.
find the workshop,
Yes.
then you know where to go,
Yes.
and on the way there, there will be essentially somebody trying to stop them, because you know what, they know they're coming at this point, so probably
Correct.
they are trying to stop them.
Correct.
Because they know, and then they go to the mines. They will be prone to investigation and find out where the secret sondage is, and then we have the showdown, which is actually the last act, which is actually the
Correct,
final
yes.
battle.
That's it. That's it. It's five basic steps, which you guys can. Oh, please go watch the video next week when it comes out. Even though you now know the secret. Anyway, so last week we were speaking about the 5 steps. This coming week is starting at the end. Anyway, right. So I mean, some fantastic suggestions. Now we've thrown in so much stuff here that we possibly need to come back and refine and look at. What would be your next step now, Demetrius? You now know these are our five blocks.
Exactly. We have a good idea of what the adventure is right now. We know effectively we have players that they will be initially, first of all, I'll delete this because we will track them on.
Yeah.
We have players that we know for a fact that, let's go through it, actually sit here. Here we have actually Act 1, which is the silver heist. Effectively, they have to find the stolen silver shipment. Yep. Then, with the clues that they found, they will find the workshop, and in the workshop, they will find probably the big mirror gone, but a smaller version, for example, maybe a prototype of that mirror being in there. So, essentially, a lower leveled villain, if that makes sense, will be there, like a secondary henchman that was still cleaning up the operation, or actually cleaning up. They were late, but there were still people there. Then they find out in the workshop where this is going to be used. Maybe want to break maybe they want to break those two up. Like somehow we'll find out how they're going to do it.
Yeah. But
on their way to the mines, they will have another encounter that essentially they will try to stop them from even reaching the mines, which is a very smart thing to do. Why would you have the showdown in the mines so you can do it earlier and not actually have your plan compromised? Then they arrive in the mines. Probably there will be some discussions with the people who were locked down of the mines. Maybe, for example, the local guardsman of the local fortress, effectively, they will help them out a little bit there. They might be getting equipment or information about the location. The end of this act is actually finding out the tunnel and going into the geode. And we think the geode there, they will find the people that will find effectively the mirror contraption that, in fact, overcharges the whole thing, and their goal is actually to stop it from actually happening. Now, the problem with that is, and we'll figure it out, but it just came to me, if the mirror is outside funneling light inside, they can just destroy the mirror outside without ever going inside.
Yes. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yes,
absolutely.
We'll get there.
Absolutely. But on the other hand, now someone was asking a lot earlier on, how do we make sure that we don't railroad the players into our solution? Because a lot of people will sit back and look at this and go, but this is just a railroad. The players have no agency here. So something that I'm talking about now in the new series is a thing called triggers. So what we've done here is we've set up a whole bunch of events. Okay, we haven't finished setting up these events yet because we haven't finished sort of mapping them out in terms of how they work. But effectively, we've got 4 events here, which means that we have to have 4 or 5, with 5 events, we have to have 5 triggers. If the players get to the showdown, let's say they get to the mines, and then they discover that there's this gigantic sun mirror firing energy down this mine shaft directly into this geode. If they decide, no, hang on a moment, we actually want to go and destroy the mirror, all that we do is we shift the showdown in the geode, we shift it to on the surface of the mirror. Because remember, the geode is just a giant reflecting crystal thing that's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. That mirror is already going to be there. So if they get to the mirror, we just make that mirror incredibly robust, and they have to destroy the focusing crystal that's at the very center of this
because it would be easier for them to do that, essentially.
Exactly. Which means they still have to walk out onto gangplanks suspended over a giant surface of glass that, even if they shatter it, now they're standing effectively over shards of crystal. So it doesn't matter where it actually happens. The players will make the story happen as they choose to go into the mine or to the, you know. So we just need to make sure that our events are in place and figure out what happens when the PCs get
Also,
there.
something I do, I don't know if that's the case, that's how you work, a guy, but for me, first of all, I do not write adventures most of the time. I write plot lines, but that's fine. I mean, adventures are also very interesting to do, especially when you want to put some organization. But at the end or at the middle of each of the acts, you can in fact have a segregation point. Essentially, you can say in the Silver Heist, they might just decide, in fact, to go with the enemy.
Oh, yes.
In which case, actually, the adventure changes. Or, for example, in the workshop, they might actually lose or be driven out, which effectively means gives more time to the enemy to actually move to their plans. Or, for example, during the showdown, they might, for example, as you said, they might decide to actually take it for themselves or actually destroy it because they have any reasons to do that. So even if they completely leave the adventure, we know for a fact that the war will happen. Because if they leave the adventure, the mine will be destroyed. And in fact, the campaign will become way worse for them because it's not going to be a war they can win. There will be a losing war that they will have to deal with other issues. So you don't have to railroad the players. You write an adventure. Hopefully, they will play the adventure. If not, I mean, give it a good reason for it. If not, then something else will happen.
That's it. Correct. I mean, that's why we don't have to go too much further in terms of designing this. We need to flesh it out to, as you say, create those moments. But yes, at the workshop, they might never get to the workshop, which would be very, very difficult. But it could possibly happen. Now, firstly, Adrian 1976, thank you so much for that donation. I really do appreciate it. And as you say, don't forget to hit that like button, folks. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. So there we are. Right now, Landon just popped in to say hi, Landon. He's cleaning. You're welcome to come to my house any day and type those messages into the live stream. I think so. Yeah. Silvershine says Silvershine says, what if they don't fight the saboteurs and they go to talk to the people in the castle instead? Absolutely. So they go to the head of the castle and they say, right, we've discovered this plot. The castle chief will send out his legions to go and stop this thing, and they stop it. The players get paid 50 gold coins for their trouble and are sent on their way. Absolutely. That's definitely an outcome. It's because remember, the players are suggesting something and all you've got to look at is, well, what does that trigger? It triggers the leader to send out his troops to go and destroy that mirror. Or if you really want that mirror and thing to be it's just ways of figuring out how to get to your next point. Anyway, let's not get too sidetracked.
All I would say also is that we have, as storytellers, to make the players being unique enough for the people to have actually the skills that they needed to in fact make this happen. So think about it. If the doors to the mine has already closed, probably for some days before the players arrived, there was already a conflict. That conflict might have been so harsh that essentially the remaining guard on the castle, because most of them actually are going down to the front lines, are decimated. So there is really nobody else who can actually take care of it right now. That is one way of doing it, essentially saying, look, the war is boiling up. The king has called for most of the dukes to send their main forces down to the south, because that's where essentially the conflict will be happening. There is, of course, some protection that was left there, but it was overcome. And now that's why the mines actually closed down, and they are trying to open it up. But, they're like 5 people with axes, and there's massive walls, massive doors. So, yes. Yeah, good luck with that.
I completely agree. An absolutely a solid idea in terms of doing that. Star Trek does it all the time. You're the only starship in the area. Do we only have 3 starships and ours is really okay? So absolutely, that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to say, well, the mines are at the bottom of this gigantic limestone cliff, and that's where all of the army is, and it takes a day and a half to get from down there up to the top, and the secret tunnel is on the opposite side. So to move all of our forces to that side is impossible. You have to go. You have to help us. Make your players believe. But again, you'll notice that's why I say at every point along this act structure, we have to make it personal for the PC. So we have to hit them
Exactly.
so that they are the ones that go, I want to stop these guys because they keep hurting us. It's about making it personal.
Exactly, and there are so many easy ways to make it personal. For example, I'll give you one. What if the father of one of the players is in fact one of the the workmasters in the mines, and when they go to the workshop, they find out, oh, this is the mine, and one of the players is like, my father works there.
Exactly. That's brilliant. Use the backstory of the players' characters.
Yeah,
absolutely. So there's lots of ways, folks, that you can keep your players' characters invested. For me, this is the fun part of GMing, is figuring out the riddle that just causes the players to go in. And I so often have players going, oh, you bastard. You know I can't say no now. And I'm going, yes, I know. I've figured out the little triggers that cause you to want to go on these adventures, because we have to do that with our players. Anyway.
And that's why Session Zeros are so important.
Yes.
Because Session Zero is a cornucopia of finding out the secrets that will trigger their players, and the desires of the player, and what drives them. If you know what drives them, and what are the problems, and what are actually the buttons they can actually push, you can do whatever they want. They will do whatever you want them to do, essentially, simple as that.
Exactly.
Puppets, dance.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, so the father could be the foreman. Absolutely right. Right, Warp Enigma says, I want to play this adventure. Now, Torben BK says, this is a question for Demetrius. What do those numbers mean under comments that Demetrius adds? Like technology and a lot of numbers. It was under Sunstone. So those article, I'm assuming that's what he's referring to. Yes.
But this is just the idea of the article. When you actually link to another article, you just see the ID. That's all. If we did it like that, so I can change that and say block up the Hashun or the mines, for example, because that way the title becomes irrelevant. I can actually have whatever title I want for this article. You see what I mean? This is still the same article.
So I see. So whatever's in brackets.
Exactly, you can change. So for example, now the thing reads, the rebels wants to blow the mines. Actually, I broke it for some reason. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, so that's just part of the BB code, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so that's just part of the BB code to make it look nice and interactable.
Yeah, I'm using the advanced editor here. You don't have to mess with that actually if you don't want to. This is the BB code that people who do more advanced work essentially work with that. Normally, you just can use the wizard. Yeah.
There we go. And those articles we have already created. Well, actually, you've been creating them as we've been going on, adding to it, and so forth. Okay, right. Yes. AK Writer says, what if a sibling or love interest of the PC joined the forces attacking the mines? Absolutely.
So I will write a section here for us to be essentially trigger points or trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can go in and
just give some notes on that necessarily to have an idea of what this can be.
Correct. Okay. We can use our points to shout at Guy about the lack of goblins. Yes, the goblins have run out. Oh dear, what happens when the goblins run out? This is for the Twitchers only. The goblins have run out. I wonder what that could mean. Well, we'll have to see tomorrow, won't we? I'm not saying you have to be in the stream tomorrow, but I'm just saying it might be useful. Anyway, so yes, why did the rebels want to blow up the mine in the first place, says De Krishka. Well, now we start to really get back to that sentence.
That's very easy to explain, because we know there is a war. If they are rebels, they're rebels against the current regime. If the people who are fighting the current regime promise them, you're going to have independence, you're going to give you a small city, for example, for you to serve, they would help. That's a good reason, essentially, to do it, right? If you're a rebel.
There we go. Absolutely.
Or we're going to establish a new king, for example, whatever. I mean, depending on the system and how they work.
Correct. So, what we are faced with now is looking at a bigger potential campaign question to answer. You're quite right. And so this first adventure, this is more than you would do in a session 0 perhaps, but it's a good question. Who are the rebels? What are they doing? Why are they working for it? Yes, they've been granted, or someone has said, if you blow up this mine, when we do eventually invade the kingdom, you will be spared, or you'll be made a lord of a certain area. So there's bribery options. A more insidious way would be to do something very similar to what Saruman did in The Lord of the Rings, which is where it is actually one of the rulers of the city who has been promised, if he blows up that mine, he will be granted half of the kingdom by this invading empire. So it's a betrayal. Whatever it is, that will be coming from our theme. So we would have a theme for the bigger campaign. And if that theme is something along the lines of betraying or deception or things not what they seem, then we would passively be able to link it in and say, okay, well, this is what we don't necessarily want to do. I mean, anyway, those are just how it'd work. Okay, so Demetrius, what would we do now in terms of world anvil space? We've now got our acts. Would you break those down further? Would you work it in the same
definitely
article?
This article especially will work mostly as a jump off point, right? I mean, the whole point of this article is actually to have the basis. So in truth, what I write here, act 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them will be different articles. Here I will just keep a very short description and a link to the actual act. Okay. Because you cannot write essentially the whole act of a thing in a single article, especially if you want to write details there, for example, or you put stat blocks or whatever this might be. So by starting with this, the next thing I will probably be doing is creating articles for each of the acts. And also for there is an article we haven't created just yet, which is very important, which is the introduction to the players. It's what the players know when they start playing the campaign.
A primer, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's a primer, exactly.
Let's finish this. I think.
No, of course, I'm not saying it's now. I'm saying that
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's something we need to do.
Absolutely. We need a primer without a doubt.
So before the primer, we need to actually start with a background for our site. And that is the article we'll be using for that, because all of those will become separate articles.
Yes.
But this is the Sunstone Mine main plot. So we need to understand what is the background and what is the expected results, and what is the reasoning, and what is the reason that everything is happening, but also how the theme will go and everything like that. So we're still working on this article, to be fair, at this point.
For sure. All right, so what information do you want from us at this moment?
So I'm guessing, let's talk about the background first. Let's talk, how do we get the players involved? How do we start the adventure, and what do they know, and why they're interested to actually take part in Act 1, which is the Silver Heist?
Okay, it's a good question. Assuming the players are in the city, let's assume that's where they're starting, because we can start them where we like. So they're in Chimali.
Are they Chimali or they're Kalumik? Because they're going to travel to Chimali in the right?
Yes, if they start in Kalumik, there's a big risk that they don't go anywhere near Chimali. So I would have this as... Sorry?
That's a very good point. I mean, it depends, because let's see our acts back then. We have actually they have to find the silver that was stolen.
Correct.
Then the workshop. And then on their way to the mine. So at this point, though, if we put them in Chimali, they will know about the mines that got closed before anything else happens.
That might not necessarily be a bad thing. Okay, if they are aware, as they're walking down the street, someone shouts, "Get your clay tablet, read all about it, mines closed for third successive day, guards flummoxed." And that's just something that's walking in the background.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They don't have anything to necessarily work with. The journey, I would like to do that as a separate adventure.
Okay.
And I would almost be inclined to say that when they succeed at saving the mine, the Lord of Chimali will ask them to go with the convoy of Sunstones back to the capital.
Oh, that's a different... Okay.
So then that would be a separate adventure. That's how I would plot it out.
So again, traveling to the mine, that can be a much smaller travel. Like it can be from
It
the city to the
depends.
mines.
Yeah, it depends. So how I would pace this out from a pacing perspective is I always like to have an NPC story section and then a combat section. Very basic pacing, very basic. So even the traveling to the mines, remember, they might not necessarily go to the base of the mine and its original entranceway. They might be trying to find where this secret tunnel has actually been built. Now, someone threw in a suggestion that perhaps kobolds were hired to dig this tunnel initially. So they could be going to the kobold village nearby, and that would be part of the journey to the mines act. I mean, but let's not worry too much about this at that particular moment. So
let's not forget that actually this is on the way to the mines. The only thing that it has is an encounter to stop them before they reach the mines.
Exactly.
That's what it's here for. So literally, that can be an hour away from the city.
Yes.
In a 2 hours journey to the mines.
Correct.
That's pretty much it.
Correct. It could be very simple. Absolutely.
Okay, so the background is that the players start in Chimali.
Yeah.
The players start in the Citadel city.
There we go. Chimali.
Of course, we're going to need to actually create we have the article already, but it has nothing in it. So we have to actually, start down and write about the Chimali.
Correct. Okay. They start in Chimali. All right. So they hear about the mines being closed from gossip on the streets. That's a clue. I mean, that's a note. We could. I mean, that's just for us to remember. Just to answer some quick questions on the chat so far. Slasio says, "Is this live on YouTube as well?" Yes, it is. It is live on YouTube. I don't know how to share the link
for YouTube.
For the YouTube.
If people go to the homepage of your YouTube channel, they will.
Oh, wait a minute. YouTube got my back. It is a live. It's like, look here, idiot. This is how you actually share the link.
Good.
Anyway, so there we are. There's a big button, share. Right, so it is live on the YouTube channel, and then it will be saved on the YouTube channel, not on the stream, on the Twitch channel. Okay, so there's another question from Trey saying, can we have some streams with all three of you, Kaora, Demi, and Guy, talking about this? I'm not saying anything, but I might be saying that someone convinced someone to come back to the stream next week, Saturday, and I'm not saying nothing. I'm not saying anything on that. So you might just get your wish, Trey. Now, AK Wright is very rightly pointing out in Rome, clay tablets weren't used as newspapers, but graffiti on the walls were used, and there was actually an individual whose job it was to actually shout it out in the public squares and all those kinds of wonderful things. So yes, absolutely right. Right, there's still a lot of debate going on about that goblin. You're only going to find out about that tomorrow, so just relax. There you are. Right. Okay, so how do we get the players involved with the silver stuff? The stealing of the silver?
Well, I think that the simplest is the easiest in these kind of things.
Sometimes, yeah.
If somebody lost a big supply of silver, this is either the trader who brought it in the city or the person who bought it, who essentially, ordered it in order to make something with it.
Right. Yes.
So let's say that actually was not a trader, but is actually one of the local lords or the local worksmen that was supposed to create a silver ornamental armor for the local lord, and suddenly he ended up with losing all the silver that he needed. So, for example, he wanted to create full armor and barding for the horse, and like barding for the people around the dude kind of thing. So there was a lot of silver being used, and he lost it. So he approached the players and say, "He will have my head. I need that silver found ASAP," kind of thing.
I like it. I want to make it hurt the PCs, though.
To hurt them?
Yes. So how do we make it the PC's fault?
Oh. Wait, what the silver being lost being the
Sure. Yeah, the silver being lost, or
Oh, that's very easy.
yeah.
They are the ones who were supposed to be protecting it overnight, and they
Yes.
got drugged by beautiful women and nice wine, and they woke up in the morning with no silver.
There we go. Okay. Yes. All right. So the contractor to hire the silver. We could certainly start that way. What is chat's suggestions? How would you make the players responsible for the loss of this silver? Ama Musashi says, what if the person from outside the town who is recognized for their silver armor, but one day that person is found dead with all of their armor gone? Okay, that's definitely an idea. Again, entrenching that in the players' minds, how would you'd have to say, well, oh, you recognize this person who was wearing silver. We've got to think about ways in which we're going to deliver this. So it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Prices skyrocketing due to the lack of silver, says Sammy Critfiddle. Yes, that's a good idea. That makes it a little bit personal. Only if the players go to a weaponsmith and say, I want my weapons silvered. Let's see. Dekrishka says the players were supposed to bring silver to the city. That's kind of what we're on already. White Tiger says, what if the PCs are given silver to sell as a reward for the quest before and it gets stolen? It kind of feels like we're giving just to take away, but yes, you're on the right track. Trey says, Dimmy, Janet's going to smack you for that.
What?
I don't know. But you're going to get a smack, apparently. Right. Utasira says the players were in charge of silver transport. Okay. Investigation of a murder, says Amem. Yes. We need to make it really hurt the player characters. Players overheard bragging about their achievements, getting silver. Someone hire them to regain the silver from the bank. What if people are trying to destroy the mine? Hide them. Well, okay. I think there's lots of... Oh, wait. Janet likes beautiful women too. So he'd be fine, says Laura Bones. What? Oh, obviously your commentary about them getting drugged by beautiful women.
What? My wife will be the first one in that adventure. She will be outplay the women, all of them.
Okay, right. So now, Sammy Critfiddle has hit the nail on the head, I have to say. So, yes, Demetrius, your idea that they are seduced and the silver is stolen. I love that. So the adventure starts. The player characters, you've just escorted this wagon with barrels of silver and maybe other gemstones. Maybe you've escorted a merchant with a chest full of silver and gemstones and that sort of thing, and you'll get a share of that reward, right? But you have to stop for the night at this tavern, so this is where the game starts. That night, they're drugged. The silver is stolen from the treasure trove, but not the gemstones or the gold.
No, that will draw attention without any reason. That makes no sense.
Well, we will have to figure out how to make it make sense, because if they don't take the gemstones and they don't take the gold, but they only take the silver, it gives the PCs a very specific target. And this is something that I personally find a lot of people sometimes miss, is by giving them that very specific target, they go, okay, so they're only after silver, so this is not a bunch of thieves that are just trying to grab anything. It helps focus them. So I agree with you. It does sound weird. Why leave the gemstones?
Well, at the end of the day, you can buy the gemstones and then buy the silver. And you still don't get gemstones, in fact, because they are easier to carry, and then you sell them for silver.
Sure. Okay. So how do we get them? There's a mixture of treasure. They just steal the silver. How do we get it to make sense?
Why did we go this area? I mean, I feel that starting the players with the idea that effectively, if they are contracted, they are essentially guardsmen or something like that, that are contracted to protect the silver. It seems like they are locals in the town, and they're looking for a local contract, whatever they got, and they got something like that. It can be the very beginning, essentially.
Yes, lovely.
Because
okay.
we don't want
Protect
them to put
silver. Yeah.
I don't want him to put them very deeply into that plot,
Yes. Agreed.
because if you put them to, but they will be completely sidelined from the thing. This
Lovely.
losing the gold, losing the silver,
Yes.
will be enough, plus essentially a nice reward to find it back, or essentially, or
Yes. Yes.
something
Yes.
else.
Absolutely. Yes. No, I completely agree.
Actually, it will be more of it will not be so much of a card. It will be more of a staking fight, because they lost the contract, they lost the silver, so they have a good reason to take part in it, because you know what, maybe the person who hired them, in fact, can pull some muscle to get them out of the city, or to make the father of the person who works in the mines never work again.
Right. No,
Whatever.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. So yes, is it? Are they guarding a strong room?
Yeah, I'm guessing so. I
That
mean,
can
you
work.
could put silver everywhere. You could put it in the middle of the stable, right?
Sorry, what? You put it in the stable? Oh,
You would
yeah.
couldn't put.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. I'm like, I was thinking of a treasure room. I'm like, wait, you're going to put it above the stable?
No,
What?
no, 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 no.
Yes. Okay. I hear what you're saying.
So I'm actually trying to actually put a bit of context here to see what kind of articles we're going to create as well.
Yes.
So we have essentially the Master Craftsman, the Lord, the Spy Seductress, or whatever this might be. It could be more than one, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have the players are contracted by a great master armor smith to protect a massive amount of silver that is to be used to create a beautiful
Yes.
armor and barding for the Lord and his retinue.
Correct.
The players will be seduced and dragged by a rebel spy Kunoichi-like NPC
Okay.
that will proceed to steal the silver, leaving the players with an empty strong room and a massive problem. The master armorsmith will, of course, be very angry to the players, right? I mean,
Sure.
we'll find a way, yeah, be angered to the players, and will task them to find the silver. And we can make either a carrot or a stick. I think a stick sounds better at this point. Essentially telling them that if they don't, they will find themselves hanged within the next 48 hours, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they because it was armor for the Lord is going to have everyone's heads
Exactly.
cut off. Yes, no, absolutely. So good night, Tillazy. Good night. Good night. They're going to bed. There's some very good statements coming through, which we're gonna come back to and answer very soon. Yeah. There we
Just the
go.
introduction, essentially.
Absolutely. Okay, so what a lot of people are saying is they're saying, oh, but it feels like the drugging is very forced. It feels like players are going to go, oh, we're not going to drink anything because the players are going to be suspicious if they've been given this task to protect this room. These are absolutely correct. And it's absolutely what we want the players to do. Because we're smarter than that, aren't we? Although maybe we're not, and we like to think we are. There was a suggestion that White Tiger came through on, which is absolutely brilliant, and it's something that we really must keep in mind, is the players must feel as if they could have prevented it, but that they were doing the right thing at the time, but there was more going on that they weren't aware of, rather than they were just railroaded into it. So, what I'm going to suggest here, because I'm also aware we're running out of time here, the drugging sequence should be incredibly obvious because it is a complete red herring.
Excellent idea.
The drugging sequence, I love the drugging idea, is these seductive creatures come rushing in. We've got drinks and the Lord has sent food for you, and the players are going to be casting detect poison, and they're going to do all of that wonderful stuff. But then the seductresses should try to seduce the party, and when that fails, they should then be making a huge amount of noise. Because the real thieves are digging a hole through the wall at the back.
That's an interesting idea.
Because it just foreshadows what's actually happening, right? So that the players are engaged trying to solve this, who sent you to poison us, because the drug, I mean, they'll put narcotics into the drinks. I mean, hey, it might work.
Honestly, she can either make them to, if she fails to drug them, because
Yes.
you know what, there is a chance actually the players will just go with it.
Exactly.
Even if they don't, if you have essentially a spy seductors or whatever she might make them essentially hunt her down, or like
Exactly.
move them away from the room, or finding another way to actually do it. I mean, she's supposed to be smart. That's why she's a spy.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So that's the trick that we can play, and it's very, very, very good. Now, again, the Warp Enigma says, well, what if they don't get seduced? What if they kind of go back around? It's not a problem. She is going to go in there prepared. So she might even very well go in there, try to drug them. If that fails, maybe she has even more aggressive tactics. But as she's going about it, if she has little pots, clay pots that explode and release smoke everywhere, so the players are looking, as long as it's a personal attack against the players, I believe they'll be focused on that. And as the GM, you can say you hear banging and bashing as she screeches towards you with a dagger trying to cut your face off. I would find it very difficult to believe that players would disengage from her and go look at the back of the stable. They might. But again, then there can be goons at the back there, and those goons are going to rough up the players. Maybe they don't steal the silver. But again, what does that trigger? It triggers that the blacksmith says, okay, well, you saved my silver, that's great. But someone's trying to steal a large amount of silver, and it's going to take me a couple of days to make this armor, because you don't take raw silver and turn it into armor. So please stay at my local, my house, my villa, my blacksmithing, whatever, for the next week. I'll pay you more and protect it. Now you've just got a couple more encounters with goons trying to steal the silver and that sort of thing. Or you rethink your big bad goes, well, maybe we don't need that silver. Maybe we'll go and hit some other silver. So there's ways and means if this really goes south.
Actually, I think it's a very interesting idea. The fact that you might even get the players to win this encounter.
Yes.
Because I will still give them the clue that somebody wanted to steal the silver. Then it might not ring any bells, but let's say that the players, in fact, let's not make it actually definitive that they will actually steal the silver, but let's say they will try to steal the silver, maybe twice. The third time they won't, because apparently the players are really good for them. There are no match for them. So where do you find the silver if not there?
Exactly.
So they might actually, the players 2 days in the adventure find out actually that the massive amount of silver was stolen by a silver store, a silverware store that actually was completely like emptied, for example. Or for example, that somebody was that had the audacity to in fact attack the Lord's manor and take the silverware.
Correct.
You see what I mean? Exactly.
Correct.
But we can move it away, and that would be a win for the players, great, but also the adventure will continue happening essentially.
Correct. Absolutely. Another way to do it, let's go digging into those player backstories. Find an aunt who also lives in the town who has been badly beaten up because of all her silverware being stolen, because the players protected the original motherlode. So absolutely. And Warp Enigma I see was actually saying, I was trying to think of other options of what could happen. Not that it doesn't work, but all questions are absolutely useful and valid. So I think it drove us in different directions. And I think that this is what we need to be aware of, is we will never be able to anticipate what our players are going to do. But we do have the capacity to anticipate what our evil characters are going to do. And by saying, okay, well, the players actually protected the silver. Damn. Oh, well, plot foiled. Off I go. Back home. Given up. No more war. No, they're going to try something else, which is steal silver from somewhere else. And that gives us the opportunity to then trigger those other events, which will get the PCs in. Okay. So, right. Let's just see. So Laura Bones, I think, is making a very good statement there. I often end up questioning myself out of half the adventures I write.
Yeah, of
As
course.
a
That's
player and
always a
GM, I
danger.
keep thinking up of all the things that can go wrong. Correct. And we are actually at our very fundamental core as the GM. Remember, we're there to make sure that we fail. So when you're running a plot and you
Of
go, oh, well,
course,
the
yeah.
pieces are just going to do that. Well, that's the point. Ultimately, I know it's really weird, but it's like, no, if we wanted that geode to explode, guess what? It just exploded. We're God. We create these worlds. We are all powerful, so we can have these things happen. So we are actually designing them to fail. We're not designing them to succeed. So when you get these points, it's about making sure that they're logical and then trying to figure out what you would do if you were the villain going, oh, I can't get any silver.
There is a trick
You know.
actually to do, and that's actually very close to what you're saying, Guy, as well. You don't build the adventure based on what's going to happen, but based on what the people who want to actually make it happen would have
Yes.
done.
Yes.
So, essentially, right here, the player starts in Citadel city called Chimali, which actually it's a fact. There is no problem with that. And then I rewrote and says the players are contracted by a great armor smith to protect the massive amount of silver that is being used to create a beautiful armor embodying for the lords and his retinue. This is also a fact. This is something that actually we introduce to the players as part of the background. This is your job right now, effectively. It's fine. We're not actually stealing them from the choice. We're just giving them a starting point. And then they say the spy will try to seduce, drug, or failing that kill the players, so their accomplices will try to steal the silver.
Exactly. Yes.
We haven't tell them what's going to happen. We tell them what is possibly going to happen, kind of thing.
Correct. I think it should also be made clear that opening statement, the players have been contracted by a Grandmaster Armorsmith. If this is adventure 1, I would start this adventure with the Armorsmith talking directly to the players saying, well, you've very kindly agreed to protect the silver lode for this evening. By tomorrow, the guards will have made the necessary preparations for us to move it into the smithy itself, from where I will then forge the Lord's greatest barding and armor ever seen. It is a great responsibility. Thank you so much. You will all be paid 100 gold pieces on the morn once we collect the silver. Something like that. I think he would also mention that the silver has bars. It's silver bars, and each of the bars has been stamped. So if they try and steal any of the bars and sell them, all the silversmiths in the town know that has been stolen. So, because the players might very well try to steal it too. Now,
also, let's not forget that there is also the other thing we go around. We can, in fact, consider the fact that the actual silversmith is the person behind the whole plot and puts the players there because they are freaking lame and first level characters, and you're like, yeah, of course we will be able to overtake them and take the silver, and they will have all the blame on them.
Yeah, absolutely. We can work that in. We can certainly work that in. That certainly, I mean, the silversmith could be the one at the workshop.
Yeah,
who
exactly,
has got the test mirror and I mean, that would be quite lovely.
Because you will need the silversmith, in fact, to actually make a big mirror out of
There
it.
we go. Lovely. Evil Dimmy, I agree, says Hella Frey. And Grisak says, I'm with Demetrius. So, yes. Now, there are also other suggestions that the players could be hired to actually steal silver. I know I have a lot of players that when they arrive in town, invariably one of them will always say, oh, I go and try and find out if there are any leads in the the undermarkets or the thieves' cant circles and things. Absolutely. You are free to drop in as many of these ideas and notions as you like. I always maintain you need 5 clues for every one plot clue that you're trying to actually establish. So the idea that silver is being stolen for a specific purpose, you can drop in as many times as you like. So if you want to have a beggar coming up saying, I'll give you a gold for a pound of silver, which is way more than they should be paying, or whatever the market rates are. Why? Oh, I know of someone who's buying the silver. Okay. So there's lots of ways that we can really push these things and entrench it. So the next step is figuring out then, how do our players track the thieves?
That's a good
So
question.
that's the next step. But where do we have to end up? What's our next major event? Is the workshop. So we
So
need.
effectively, is the workshop? Let me check.
I think that's Act 2. Is the
Yes, the
workshop.
workshop. So essentially, for one way or another, I was says investigation would reveal that the silver is used to create a massive mirror. Yeah.
Yes.
So that is
Correct.
yeah. So before that, in fact, So this actually doesn't fit anymore in Act One because Act One actually have not the silver highs. We have an actually Act Zero here, which is actually the introduction, right? Which is
Well, I mean, the whole thing sort of flows together. But yeah, I mean,
so you need essentially
sorry,
that's the introduction. The introduction is the missing silver, like the fact actually we have all the whole fact that the spy will try to steal the silver. The players will thwart here or not. Then we have to find actually a way for them to be tasked to
yes,
find the silver,
correct,
and that gives them the clue to the workshop. So the
correct,
question is actually how do we go from that to that?
correct.
Because to go from that to the workshop, we know how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by essentially giving them the trick. Sorry, we'll give them essentially the piece of how do you call it, Da Vinci-like thing that shows them that's what they're going to be building it with.
Yeah, well, we've got to get them to that point, so we need to figure out what is
exactly
the journey that they're going to go on.
Yes.
And so yes, so once it's been stolen, they have to find it or die, basically, which is great. I mean, it's always cake or death, which I think is absolutely fine. So we need them to have a clue. So we've got some options already that we've thrown in there. We've got the seductress. We've got the fact that they have dug a hole in the back of this room to get to the silver. We could drop more stuff in there. We could have a tattoo that the seductress has on her body. I mean, there's so many cliches in terms of the next step. Maybe the thieves digging the hole, one of them dropped a particularly scented handkerchief, or the typical is a box of matches from a certain nightclub. Right? I mean, that's the standard trope when we're looking at investigations, because effectively what this becomes a little investigation. Now, we need to understand how much, and Hefe Live says, now I want cake. I want cake too. The best I've got, I don't have any cake. I've got biscuits. I don't have a biscuit. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, so what we're going into now is an investigation, and how many clues we want to get from empty room to the workshop is entirely up to you and to reading your table, in my opinion. If your guys like clues, they like following a trail of breadcrumbs to get them to a point, then maybe you could go with 4 or maybe 5.
And you see, that's where Golden Anvil actually becomes very useful.
Aha.
Because the trick is that, as I wrote here, I wrote important organizations, important NPCs, important locations kind of thing. If we give that as part of the primer, or essentially, because, some of the things that the players will know about those things. For example, let's say I tell them that the most famous inn in the city is a place called the Blue Unicorn, for example, and it's known because it actually has an emerald unicorn at its it's a wooden
on its badge.
On its badge, actually as a logo. And let's say, for example, that the players find out, for whichever way in the adventure, a blue unicorn thing that says, for example, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning there will be, for example, a band playing, blues, whatever this might be. That would be a clue. But you don't have to tell them anything else if they have read the primer. Because the moment they see this clue, they're going to say, oh, they will be at the event tomorrow.
There we go. Absolutely. Lovely. Correct. So yes, it makes perfect sense to me. And I think again, it's an introductory adventure, isn't it? So part of our goal in writing this is to make sure that the players get used to this environment. So
Actually, part of this our goal is actually to write the whole city of Tsimali, or at least a good part of the city of
well, yeah, to
Tsimali.
get them familiar. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So
Because yeah, I'm just saying that that's how gonna be feeling as if that they know things because they are locals, right? So they at least know the basics about the city.
there we go. There we go. Absolutely. So I would err on the side of perhaps 3 clues in terms of 3 steps they need to take to get to the workshop. It's not a lot. It's not too many. And it's quite quick. It'll probably take them a session, depending on how long your sessions are.
Yeah.
I would then also make sure that those 3 clues, one of them is a combat, one of them is a riddle, and one of them is a social interaction. So what that does is it allows all of the player characters, regardless of the classes that they're playing, to have a moment to shine. It also makes sure that there is difference in terms of each approach. So, like, for example, your blue unicorn clue, that someone dropped a note
That's an investigation
or a flyer.
clue, I'm guessing, right?
Well, we could have it go in any of the directions. It could be that when they arrive at the Blue Unicorn, they show the flyer and they get taken to the back room to watch a fight between 2 giant ogres being ridden by halfling riders in a mud pit. And I only say that because I've used that idea once before.
That's a very good idea.
You know, and then they have to compete, or they end up. I mean, we can work it out, and at the end of it, then they get, oh yeah, that you took the place of Vinny. Vinny was supposed to ride the ogre. He didn't show up for work today. We don't know why. This is where Vinny lives, right? So it could be a combat that they're involved in, or quite rightly, it could be a social interaction where they spread out amongst the crowd trying to figure out who would have had this note or just to watch a display of something going on. So we really can decide which way to take it. But again, I would just tick the boxes. I know it sounds awfully formulaic, but I would do it like that. Okay, let's have a combat because the fighters are getting antsy. They had the seductress combat, so maybe we don't want that. Krishka, you get 50 points for remembering where that particular scene came from. Captain Con remembers 2 ogres in a mud pit with a halfling saddle. Yeah, it was, you know, when you're GMing, you go into such weird places. I believe that took place in a brothel, actually. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, so that's the Blue Unicorn. I quite like that one. As a link, and that leads them to one of the characters. If they get to Vinny's place, perhaps he's booby trapped it because he was worried he was going to be found out, and so then that becomes a riddle for the players to solve. They solve that, and what they discover is actually massive amounts of bags full of clay or something, I don't know. And the clay comes from a certain riverbank, and they go to that riverbank, and then they find the laboratory. Or we can figure out those links. But anyway, I mean that's just, those are just options, and we can do them. We can swap them around and do them in any different order. The Dungeon Tomb says, do you have a discount code if I buy World Anvil for the different tiers? To me, because there is a discount
code.
You
have one.
There is definitely one. It's just for the top tiers, right?
Yes, it's actually for, in fact, you're for any 6 or 12 months membership right now. So anything from Journeyman Master, Grandmaster, or even Sage, your code will work and will be giving 20% off. So use Great GM.
There we go.
When you subscribe for World Anvil. And if you take any 6 or 12 months membership, you'll be getting 20% off.
There you are. And I've typed that code into chat as well, just so you can remember. Great GM. That's absolutely awesome. And thank you, of course, to World Anvil for giving us that option to make use of this amazing software. I mean, we're only scratching the surface here. Do you know that we've actually run out of time?
Did we?
We have actually run out of time. We have actually run out of time. So we've got some very good steps we've got some very good steps, and we've got the option to save and come back and carry on working on this. So
which is very nice, isn't it?
it is, and I hope we can remember it, because next week I have a suspicion we won't be working on this adventure.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it can always be continued afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. Absolutely.
In fact, I think for the next time, I will sit down a little bit and write a bit of the articles to make the structure, so we can actually start filling it in, because we have done so much work. I mean, the guys were here so amazing. We have talked about the rebels and the Chimali Guard and the Master Craftsman and the Lord and the Spice and Doctors and the Strong Room and Chimali as a city and the Emerald Unicorn. All of these places that we have to give them life to. And Chimali is just the, like the very top in the iceberg kind of thing. Like it's gonna be amazing. Exactly. That's really a very good adventure. I'm really excited to play it with somebody.
I love making adventures with you, Timmy. I really do. And with all of you throwing in wonderful input, making sure that the adventures never stay dull. And I believe there was a gift sub that was given. Thank you so very much for that. You see, this is the problem with streaming to 2 channels, is that unless I can look in both directions, I can't see what's going on. But anyway, so a big thanks to all of you for participating tonight, and I wish we could have got further, but these things just take time with all the nonsense going on.
Well, let's not forget that we're not just doing typesetting here. We have actually been creating the idea with these amazing people.
Yes, no, absolutely. So it takes us a little bit longer than when you're on your own. Anyway,
exactly.
Warp Enigma says, thanks for hosting, you two. I love this chat. It's my favourite stream at the time. There we go. Fantastic. Yay. It's my only stream at this particular time as well. So, it's my favourite one too. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Demetrius, thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you really for showing us. It's always so much fun. Always so much fun.
It is, and it has been great. And so, Demi, you've got an update tomorrow on World Anvil and stuff.
We'll be going live at 7:30 right before you, right? Because you're going live at 8 tomorrow.
That's it.
So we're going live at 7:30 tomorrow to give you some nice updates. Janet has some really good news for you all. And then after that update, we'll be going straight to Guy to do what Guy is doing on Sundays, which is
the live sessions with the GM, absolutely, where you can bring all of your gaming questions about RPGs, and we will talk about that. And I'll be showcasing another Kickstarter. I know I bring these up, but we will be showcasing a Kickstarter which I think if it had come out a month or 2 ago would probably be the most played thing in the world, in the RPG space, but sadly it's still in Kickstarter phase, so there we are. But yes, we will be doing more of those wonderful treasures from Lawsmith and having a lot of fun. So that is tomorrow after the World Anvil stream, so check us out then. And that's on this channel, whichever channel you happen to be on, until tomorrow or whenever it is that we see you again. Thanks for watching, and happy gaming.
Bye-bye.